What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Greetings from the Garden State. I'm Mike Ham. We're here at the Mayo Performing Arts Center with General Manager Ed Kirchdoerffer. Ed, did I do your name justice right out of the gate?
You did.
I crushed it. I crushed it. So we're here in Morristown, New Jersey. Like I said, we're at the Mayo Performing Arts Center. This is part of our launch group of episodes. So we have the Mayo Performing Arts Center, we have the Right Cut, and we have Calandra's Bakery as part of our first three that we're posting. I'm really excited to be here. I've been to shows here. I've seen Steve Martin and Martin Short here once. I've been to a couple of the Manhattan comedy nights, which are always a good time. And I live right here in town. So obviously this is like a pillar of the community. So tell us a little bit about the Mayo Performing Arts Center.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. We appreciate it. Mayo Performing Arts Center is a 1,300-seat performing arts center located here in the heart of Morristown. We've been around since 1994 as a performing arts center. It's actually built as a movie theater back in 1937 as a single-screen theater. And we have about, in a normal year, I say a normal year because obviously the last year and a half has been
less than normal.
Not normal. But in a typical year, we would have about 150 to 200 events on our stage with artists ranging from all types of performing arts. So like you said, you saw Steve Martin and Martin Short. Great show.
That was
two
phenomenal.
of my all-time favorites.
Yeah. Legends.
Yeah.
Legends.
Rock artists, pop, classical, dance, children's shows, pretty much the entire gamut of performing arts.
Right. No, it's very interesting. And, you know, like you said, I mean, there's so many different types of things that are going on. But what I found interesting, because I was doing some research last night and this morning before I knew we were going to sit down and do this interview, was that it actually started as a movie theater. And it was part of like a big chain of movie theaters, wasn't it?
It was a chain that was created by Walter Reed.
Walter Reed, right.
Who was out of Monmouth County. And he, ironically, he built the theater here in Morristown based on geography. At that time, it was a first-run movie theater. Yeah. And there were three other theaters, movie theaters in Morristown at the time, and they were second-run. Back in the 30s, there had to be a geographical distance between first-run theaters, so it had to be, I believe, 30 or 35 miles from Manhattan. In Morristown, it's 30 or 35 miles from Manhattan. Yeah. So he built one here. There are sister theaters in Hudson, New York. I actually saw that while I was on vacation this summer. It was very run down. It sort of looked like our theater did in the 80s when we were run down. There's one in Saratoga Springs and one in Thomas River. Okay. They are all standing there, and none of them are theaters except for ours.
So this is the last one standing.
As a theater, yes.
As a theater, right.
Yes.
So I find that interesting because, I mean, I am only in Morristown since the last couple of years. So this has kind of always been here since I've been around, you know, but obviously it wasn't, like you said. I mean, it was pretty run down back in the 80s. So kind of go through maybe like, if you could, like that history of it. Yeah,
it kind of passed through and when it was in its heyday as a movie theater in the 30s, late 30s, 40s, 50s, it was kind of the to-go place in the area. It is a very elegant movie theater, and we've heard from a lot of our older patrons. Many of our volunteers used to talk about how they had dates and they help sneak their friends in to the balcony and stuff like that. This was a place where you got dressed up. So if you lived in the Oranges or if you lived out in the Rockaways or whatever, you came to Morristown to see a theater. It passed through, and he passed away. It passed through his family, and then went through some changes in ownership and started getting run down in the 70s. And at that point, you had the rise of the multiplex. Right. And a single screen theater could not compete against a multiplex. So it closed in the early 80s and was very blighted. And I grew up in this area, so I remember this. I remember passing this building, going, "Oh, what an ugly building!"
And like right in the center of Morristown,
how come it isn't knocked down? Because you had the over headquarters and all that. And it really, a couple groups tried to revive it for concerts. I actually remember seeing Martin Mull here in I actually found a ticket stub the other day. I brought it in, and nobody was impressed that I had this ticket stub from 1978 in a program when it was called the Mars Stage. But I remember seeing Martin Mull and George Carlin here in the 80s, but it never could stick. So those things went by the wayside, and it really went to rot. And in 1994, a gentleman named Alexander Slobodanyk. He was a Ukraine pianist, and his wife, Larissa, and some of their friends took a look at the building, and they saw within this shell that there was something there.
Yeah.
And the story goes that they invited Valery Gergiev, a famous conductor from Russia. I guess it was Russia at that time. I guess they weren't the Soviet Union anymore. But they went on stage, and there's mushrooms growing from the floor and dust everywhere. And he either snapped his fingers or clapped his hands. History is unsure of this. but he said, the Kirov will play here.
Yeah.
That's my amazing Russian accent. I'm sure everybody's impressed by that.
Not bad.
And that was kind of the impetus to get it going. And that summer, hundreds of volunteers, they put up signs outside, please help us out. They said the first day they came back, dust, like up here, we're talking in the balcony of the theater right now in our art gallery. They said the dust was knee high. So it was just run down.
Yeah.
And volunteers came, they scraped and painted and made it possible to have it. And September 29th, actually, wow, we're on its birthday yesterday. Huh?
Yeah.
September 29th, September 30th, we're talking. 1994, the theater opened with the Kirov Orchestra, and it wasn't, you could still smell some of the mildew and flakes were coming down from the ceiling, but that started it.
Yeah.
And then we're now in our 27th year, and it's really taken off, especially over the last 2 decades.
Yeah. You know what else is interesting, and I'm sure you could speak to this as well, because you're crushing the history of this theater right now, just as an FYI, and your Russian accent was pretty good, I thought. So it's the Mayo Performing Arts Center. And so when I've told a couple people that maybe are not from this area, they're like, oh, what does Mayo stand for? But it doesn't stand for anything. It's an actual person that was instrumental in kind of the rehabilitation of the theater.
Yeah, the theater was originally named the Community Theater. If you are familiar with our building and you come and you look on the outside, it says Community Theater on it. So we wanted to retain some of the history of the theater.
Right.
The name Community Theater has an implication to it. We realize that when you're dealing with agents and artists who are from other parts of the country, they're like, community theater, what do you do? Stage Oklahoma or something?
Right.
But so we saw an opportunity when we expanded the facility in 2007 that Bud Mayo, who was a former chairman of our board and benefactor of the theater, became an opportunity to name it for all that he has given to the theater, both not only from a financial point of view, but also just from his advice, his leadership to have the goal of taking this from one level to the level that we're at now, and to really go for the. He always said, don't be afraid to go after the bigger artists because people will come. Yeah.
No, 100%. And I think that's great. Also, one of the things that I know about the theater, and maybe you could speak to this because I'm not really familiar with other theaters. This is a 501c3 nonprofit. Is that common for theaters like this, or is that?
There are, it's a mix. So many of the bigger theaters in New Jersey are nonprofits. Count Basie, State Theater, Bergen. So a lot of times what happens with buildings that have been rehabilitated, from movie theaters to theater, to performing arts centers like we have, like all those other ones as well. It's usually started by a community group of people who see that there's value to have something like that in their town, and then it kind of grows into a nonprofit organization. And there are other ones, like believe the Wellmont is not a nonprofit. That's owned by, I think that's owned by Live Nation or something. But so it goes both ways.
Yeah. Okay, great. And then what we didn't do at the very beginning, which you probably should have done, was talk about what you do here. So you're the general manager of the Mayo Performing Arts Center. So what is generally your job as a general manager?
I like to say I manage generally, but as a general manager, I am involved in most aspects of the theater's operations, a little more on the marketing and education and messaging and PR side of things, but really whatever
needs to be done, you get it done. Like doing a podcast.
You can, doing a podcast. You can currently see me in front of the theater on most nights checking vaccination cards these days. So that's my job on a show night these days.
So you can, full disclosure, perk of the job is that you do get to see a lot of these cool events, I would imagine?
Yeah. I mean,
Does it ever get like too much? Like, oh, another show tonight?
no, we want to have shows every night if we could.
Right.
That said, it was a lot easier when I lived a mile away from the theater than 20 miles away from the theater. So I could see most. I try for the events that I am here at. I try to see some portion of it, so I'm aware of what happens in case there's some questions about the event.
Right.
And the ones you really want to see. It's a bit of a perk to be able to see the shows. We don't do anything like I'm the general manager. I'm going to go backstage and meet the
hobnob.
We don't do that. It's not what we're about.
Right. It makes sense.
It's an organizational philosophy that it's not here for us. It's here for the people and
the community.
We are not there to take advantage of it, but we certainly encourage our staff to also, you work all day in an office and realize that the business happens at night. Yeah. And sometimes there's we want to just remind some of our workers, you have shows. So, enjoy the audience and come out and meet the audience. It's kind of a fun thing to do.
Exactly.
So I always say at the end of an evening when people come out of those doors open and they're like buzzing out because they just had a great time. Yeah. And they're just like thrilled and everything like that. It's a great feeling to know that 100%. We provided that service. So. Yeah.
Do you have if you could pick maybe one that you've seen that you're just like, that was epic? Is there one?
Oh,
are there a couple?
Such a hard, because I've been here 19 years.
Oh, okay. So you probably got a few. Yeah.
So there are shows that oh my God, this is somebody that I followed as a kid or something like that.
Right.
Jackson. The first time we had Jackson Brown. Okay. Jackson Brown when I was in high school, I would listen to Jackson Brown albums in the dark in my room. Oh, he's pouring out my heart in song, right? And I saw him, and ironically, the seat that I had, I was behind somebody who was about 8 feet tall. I could see. He was like, I'm looking down the aisle. He's moving the aisle. And somebody behind me is taking a picture with a flash, and one of our security people starts yelling at me, saying, "Don't use flash." And I go, "I work here. I know the rules." We've had Steve Martin here 3 times. Okay. And I had the opportunity to meet him because we were doing a meet and greet with some of our donors, and so that was a thrill because I was always a big Steve Martin guy when I was a kid. Yeah, I think sometimes it's the shows that you don't expect. Yeah, it's like, oh, here's some Irish step dancing show, and then you watch the show and it's like, wow, this was really good.
It just blows you away.
I remember seeing Jose Feliciano. Well, I'm going to stay for a song and then I'm going to leave, and he was like really good, and so I always like being surprised by stuff that we put on stage that I would not expect to like. It's expanded my tastes a lot.
That's very cool
to be able to experience like some jazz and some classical things that I wouldn't have exposed myself to. And one other one was being able to. I have a 7-year-old, so being able to take him to his first shows and
that's cool.
See things through his eyes was kind of cool. After working here all this time.
Right. Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's fantastic. So we're going to take a quick break. Then we're going to come back. We're here at the Mayo Performing Arts Center. We're here with Ed Kirchdoerffer. I'm Mike Ham. This is the Greetings from the Garden State podcast. We'll be right back. It is time for Today in New Jersey History. On October 18th, 1753, Joseph Bloomfield was born in Woodbridge, New Jersey. Bloomfield would become the 4th governor of New Jersey and would serve 2 terms in the U.S. House of Representatives from 1817 to 1821. And you guessed it, the township of Bloomfield is named after him. And that is Today in New Jersey History. What's up, everybody? We're back. We're here at the Mayo Performing Arts Center. I'm Mike Ham. This is the Greetings from the Garden State podcast. We're here with Ed Kirchdoerffer, the General Manager of the Mayo Performing Arts Center. So in the first segment, we did a great kind of look back at the history of the theater, how it started, how it got to where it is today, some of your favorite shows that you've seen, which was cool. But let's get into kind of maybe some current events that are going on right now. So I know education is a big piece of what you guys do here at the Mayo Performing Arts Center. Can you talk about that? Like, what are some things that you do with the community?
Sure. We have a pretty broad-based education program and performing arts school. So on the so we kind of look at it. They're all underneath education, but they're kind of 2 separate buckets. So we work with a lot of schools in the Morris County area and a few outside of Morris County, where we provide residency programs. We'll send a teaching artist into the school, and we'll work with them on a specific program, like reading or history or something like that, and use theater arts as a means to create a program through that. We do programs with the Boys and Girls Club of Patterson, with Children on the Green in Morristown. Many of these programs we offer free to these organizations who are working with children from many times families or children who never even had a performing arts experience.
Yeah.
We bus, when we used to be able to,
right.
And we hope to do later in 2022 or maybe next season. Typically in a year, we would have about 15 to 20 performances for schools, and we would bus, if you're in Morristown when that happens, the buses line up South Street, and we bus in about 11,000 kids over the course of the year for education type programs, and they're coming from all over the state. Again, for a lot of them, it's the first time they've experienced something live in a theater.
Yeah.
And then on our performing arts school side, this is a tuition-based program that we've done since, I believe, about 2005. It's a very comprehensive program that deals with musical theater, acting, improv. Classes typically sell out. It's a great program, and it's really structured in a unique way where it's really about the teamwork and being part of a group, as opposed to, look at me, I'm a star, I'm acting, or I'm singing, something like that. It's a very collaborative dynamic, and I think the kids really like that dynamic because one day you might be doing more than the other, but the next day you might just be doing something small.
Right.
And within that program, we have two sub-programs out of that. One's called the Miracle Project, which we started about 4 or 5 years ago. The Miracle Project is a program for children on the autism spectrum and with other special needs. And again, it teaches them performing arts to express their creativity. It's a program that's unique to New Jersey. There's only 3 Miracle Projects in the country. It came out of LA. They adopted us, and there's one in, I think, Brown University. So it's a really amazing program to see these kids who often have no friends, and they're kind of off to the side, that this is a place where they can come once a week and just be part of something amazing.
Yeah.
And to see their final performance, and not really performance, but what they do at the end of this final class where these kids are singing and whatnot, and see that their parents are just like thrilled that their children are smiling and having fun and making friends, which is very tough, I understand, for families with children with autism.
Right.
And one other program that we have is the Performing Arts Company, which is by audition. And this is a group of kids, typically 13 to 18. They are our ambassadors into the community. They're a performing troupe, and they perform for nonprofits and other events. Sometimes they're on stage with artists. They're a great group of kids. They don't have to pay for any of their rehearsals or anything like that, but they are dedicated and come to rehearse every week and then perform, again, maybe a couple dozen times throughout the county at fundraising events, at senior centers and whatnot. And again, just terrific and very talented, amazingly talented. It's just scary how talented they are.
Like you're jealous.
Yeah, I mean, my talent, I'm lucky if I can button my shirt in the morning. So.
Right, I always miss like the top one, and then I'm like uneven by the time I get to the bottom. Yeah, so so I think that's tremendous. So, like, what was the impetus, I guess, behind the theater going beyond just being a theater and doing stuff like this? Was it just trying to connect with the community? Is that part of the 501c3 thing?
It's been part of our mission to educate and entertain the surrounding region and to engage people in the arts. And I think it was just that time in our evolution where we sort of got the concert part down, right? So it's like, what's our next step in evolution? Let's start engaging children. And our education director, Kathy Roy, was someone that our president and I myself had worked with at another venue. She's terrifically talented and innovative, and brought her in to create this program from scratch. And there's a lot of other wheels to or spokes rather. I knew it was something that had to do with the wheel. There are a lot of the spokes to this education program, including student recognition, where we honor music students on stage. And again, typically these kids never, it's sports first, and music and arts kind of get shunted to the side. So we do things like that. We have a program for visual arts as well, and it's a very comprehensive and engaging program that we just continually need to expand, and will expand in the future.
Right. Awesome. So one of the other things that I told you we were going to talk about was I did not know that this was up here, this art gallery. So when did this kind of start? What was the importance of making sure that you tried to get a lot of different kinds of art, whether it's on stage or this kind of stuff,
Sure.
and that?
Again, back around that same time frame, one of our board members had the idea to marry the visual with the performing arts, and we had this space. So it was different looking at the time. We renovated this in 2011, but she believed that there was an opportunity here, and we started the gallery at that time. We have rotating exhibits. That's about every 4 to 8 weeks. We switch the shows. We feature about 200 to 300 artists a year up here. They're usually group shows.
Right.
And it just gives a chance for a lot of people who may never step foot or think about stepping foot in a gallery space to be exposed to that, and expose some very talented people to them as well. We actually added a second gallery in our Starlight hallway, which is on the other side of the theater, and it's the hallway to our Starlight room, which is a lounge for our donors. And that's usually we have shows by single or individual artists. I don't know if they're single or married. I don't know. But right now we have one from a woman who did some really interesting work that Spike Lee actually purchased the work, and the stuff that's there is symbolic of that. But again, it's usually an individual artist. And also that we've done things like had an autistic artist there, and it allows us a little more experimentation in that area.
Awesome. Yeah, so one of the other questions that I did have was, as we're talking about, kind of evolutions and changes and stuff that the theater's gone through from when it, first got renovated to all the way to where we are today, and different things that are happening, are there things maybe on the horizon that are some goals of the theater to try to make happen to kind of keep the evolution moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, quite honestly, the most immediate goal is just getting back to a kind of a normal situation. It's still difficult right now. We've been doing full capacity events since September 1st, the night of the hurricane. That was a fun night. It was actually a lot of fun. It was crazy with the rain and everything. And the ride home was a different story. But so we've been doing it for a month. We've gotten a month under our belt, and we're making adjustments. We are obviously dealing with a lot of things and a changing landscape almost on a weekly, if not daily basis, in regard to protocols and guidelines and restrictions, not only for the artists, but for the backstage, for the front of house workers, for everybody. Yeah. So this upcoming year is going to be a year of just kind of hopefully getting back to an environment that is kind of normal again. But that said, we've done some innovative stuff over the last 20 months, including some drive-in concerts over at Foster Fields Park in the Marshall County Park System. Yep. I don't know if we'll continue with that next summer or not. We did it for 2 summers. We're looking at some technological upgrades to how people buy concessions, possibly an app. We're always looking for ways to make people's experience better. There is some discussion of finding a way to expand the school. Nothing I can really get into at this point, but we did acquire property behind the theater. The house is behind the theater, so we're hoping for some sort of expansion down the line. Any talk of it was kind of put on hold for the last year and a half. But I think maybe in the next 6 months, we're going to start looking at that again.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I'm excited about that because, I think this place is great. And so far, this episode has been great. So we're going to take our second break, our last break of this episode. This is the Greetings from the Garden State podcast. I'm Mike Ham. We're here at the Mayo Performing Arts Center with its General Manager, Ed Kirchdoerffer. We'll be right back. It is time for your New Jersey fun fact of the day. Did you know the town of Beamerville, New Jersey is home to a volcano? Don't worry, though, it's no longer active, and that is your New Jersey fun fact of the day. And we're back. This is the Greetings from the Garden State podcast. We are here with Ed Kirchdoerffer, the General Manager of the Mayo Performing Arts Center here in Morristown, New Jersey. So far we've learned a lot about the history of the theater. We kind of learned about what's going on now with the theater, the educational programs. And now we're going to kind of get into some stuff that we talked about it and touched on it quite a bit throughout the episode so far, but kind of the relationship between the Mayo Performing Arts Center and the community here in Morristown and the surrounding areas. So talk to me about, this is the community theater. There are, I know at show nights, I know there are a lot of volunteers that come in and, maybe check tickets or serve drinks. I don't know if that's what they do, but I would imagine that's what they're doing. So talk to me about the importance of the community being a part of what goes on here at the Mayo Performing Arts Center.
Well, the building was saved by the community, and community was within our original name. So community has always been part of our DNA.
Right.
Even though we're now Mayo Performing Arts Center, we have about 120 to 150 volunteers who do that. They scan people in, they work concessions, they are ushers and whatnot, and we can operate without them. And there's a lot to putting on a show, and there's a lot of people that need to make it work, and they're great people. They are very invested in the theater. They're very happy to tell you when you've done something wrong. There's a typo in the marquee. But so, and it's great that they have that passion.
Yeah.
And for them, for many of them, it's also their kind of social network. So they make friends and they see each other every year. They look forward to getting back together with them and have a great relationship with our professional staff as well, and really feel invested in the theater. And they're great ambassadors into the community as well.
Yeah, 100%. And then also maybe kind of looking the other way. So I know we did touch on a couple, but I know that the events and things that the theater does, it goes beyond what happens here under this roof. Correct?
Yes,
do stuff on the green, maybe out front, in front of Jockey High. I don't know. So maybe
we do. We have an initiative called Arts in the Community, and it's really looking at a chance to find diverse artists, mostly New Jersey artists, and give them an opportunity to perform for free within the community. So we have done events next door at Vale. We've been at Granby Park, the Senior Center in Morristown, at the Green, and we typically try to, again, showcase artists who they may not be ready to be on our stage yet, but they certainly deserve an audience, and we want to be able to present these sorts of events throughout the year, mostly in the summer, but we're looking to expand this program and come up with some different aspects of it throughout the year that might be indoor here, either on our main stage or in our Starlight Room space, which can hold about 75 people in it.
Very cool. Very cool. And then the other thing that I know that we wanted to talk about was, as we're talking about, you have volunteers here helping out the show nights, then you're reaching back out into the community. If people are listening to this episode and they're like, man, I really want to, learn more about the Mayo Performing Arts Center. First off, where can they go to learn more? What's the website?
Now, the website's mayoarts.org, and it's a pretty comprehensive website. On there. There's everything we think you need to know, but we always find that somebody comes up with a question that we didn't think about, and we adjust.
Yeah, sure. Right.
But it has information about upcoming shows, the education programs, supporting the theater, just kind of everything that goes on here.
Yeah. And then as far as, I know there's a membership opportunity, so talk about what the membership program might look like.
Sure. We encourage people, if they believe in what we do, to support the theater. Membership levels start at $150 for a year. They go up to whatever your heart desires. But we do have a kind of a level called the Starlight Society, which is, I believe, these days $1,500 and above. And there are benefits that come with each level,
right.
And the higher the level, the more the benefits come.
Sure.
I think the main attraction for many people is that they get to purchase tickets before they go on sale to the public.
Okay.
So our higher end donors get to purchase before anybody, and then our regular member donors can purchase a day before, which is important when you have a big show come in, when a Steely Dan is added, or a major artist. That people want to get the better seats, and sometimes these shows come close to selling out in the pre-sale. So we do encourage people to join. Many join specifically because of that, but we also hope that they join because they see that supporting our mission is important. It's important to the community. We hope that people see the theater as a pillar of the community, and that having the theater is good for the businesses in town. When we have a show, the restaurants are full, especially on like an off night, like a Tuesday in the winter. Right. It brings business into the area, and it is nice to be able to say you're from a town that has a theater that draws major talent right down the street from you, and you can walk home.
I can walk. It's a 10-minute walk for me to get from where I live to here, and that's always a great thing. And then you go to frequent one of the restaurants around here, or one of the bars, and then it's easy to get back home.
We always like on a show night when there's a lot of buzziness going on, so you can feel it. It's a nice night out. The restaurants are full. Everybody's excited about the show, and you can feel that energy in town.
No, 100%. That's 100% true, and I would, definitely agree with that. So,
if you look, I'm sorry, this one.
Go ahead.
I mean, if you look at where Morristown was in 1994 when we reopened to where it is now, I mean, it's night and day.
Right.
And the theater has been an important, and I'm going to say it's the only reason. It's one, but it's a key reason that happened. You have a theater, then the restaurants are going to spread up because people are going to want to eat before the theater, and then people kind of like, well, what else is going on in this town? So we bring in over 240,000 patrons annually on a normal year, and they're spending money in restaurants and parking and maybe shopping and whatnot. It's an economic impact of over 15 million in the community.
Yeah, which I think is crazy too. And I think that like you said, you could almost look at the Performing Arts Center here as kind of like the heartbeat of what goes on in the surrounding community.
We do say it's at the heart of arts and entertainment in Morristown. And it's a reason why a lot of other towns do the same. They see the value of a performing arts center or the arts in their community, and people want to be in arts communities. It's important to them as a lifestyle choice. So that's why towns, Montclair, Red Bank, Vineland, New Brunswick, they all have art centers because they see what it's doing for their towns.
100%. And it's been phenomenal. And this episode has been, like I said before, just off the charts. So I know the website's another one place to go. Are there any other ways that people can kind of learn more about the theater? Is there an Instagram account? I'm pretty sure there are.
Yes. And now you're going to put me on the spot to know what the Instagram account is.
We could look it up as you're going. Huh? I know that's how we got connected.
I should know, but I don't. I mean, we're on all those places, Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and YouTube and all that stuff. So just find us. I'm sure it's either at Mayo PAC or... It
is Mayo PAC.
Oh, yeah. See, look at me.
Pretty good. Yeah, you undersold it and then you over-delivered, so that's good. So, and then what's the address here? People want to put it in the GPS and come down and check it out.
Sure, it's 100 South Street. We are right next to the Vale lawn. It's a big lawn, and the library is across the street, and the two churches, St. Peter's and the Presbyterian Church. So right in the center of town here. Just look for the 3 columns or the 4 columns, and
Awesome. Yeah, no, again, this episode has been tremendous. Ed, thank you so much for doing this with us today. I'll make sure that I put the address, the website, the Instagram handle, all that kind of stuff in the show notes so that if people do want to learn more about what upcoming shows there are, or maybe a membership opportunity, sponsorship opportunity, all that kind of stuff, we'll make sure that we put that in there. Again, do we hit on all the stuff? Do we make sure we touch on everything?
So. I mean, people just, if they want to know what's going on, there's always events being added almost on a weekly basis. So there's usually something new to check out on our website. We have, especially now since tours are starting to gear up again. So I'd say there's a lot of action happening for the first and second quarter of 2022, and the bigger names are starting to get out there. So they can sign up for our e-news blast. They can write on our website. They can put their email address in, and they'll be informed of the events that are coming down the pike and what's happening in the interim. So.
Awesome. So there are tours. You do tours through here too. Is that what you said?
No.
Not right now, or not ever.
Well, we do tours we don't do like a public tour.
Oh, okay. All right.
I think we've talked about it.
Yeah.
I actually put together a tour during COVID. It had nothing to do that one day. I put together a history tour.
Right.
It's wonderful. There's a PowerPoint.
Okay. All right.
But we've talked about doing that just because there's a lot of interesting history about the theater. No ghosts. Sorry, we don't have a ghost story.
That's too bad.
But we do have some interesting stuff about Meatloaf face planting on stage and stuff like that. So
yeah, so that's something you got.
You'll have to come and see me, folks. So hear the story.
Awesome. All right. So Ed, again, thank you so much for doing with us today. I'm Mike Ham. This has been the Greetings from the Garden State podcast. Ed Kirchdoerffer, Mayo Performing Arts Center. He's the general manager here. Great guy, great interview, fantastic. Everybody else, thank you for listening, and we will catch you next time.
Crowd